Hello and welcome to the British Sitcom History Podcast. My name is Alan. With me, as always, is Gareth.
Oh, hello, darling.
Hello, darling. Now, Gareth, you and I, we make a great pair, and we never fall out about anything. Unlike the subjects of our show today, which is marriage lines. But yes, this is a very early sitcom. I believe a pilot was made in 1961. Well, the information on that is a bit scarce. The first series came out in 1963, and it ran through to 1966. 5 series in total, and it charts the trials and tribulations of a young married couple. In fact, the very first episode is them coming home from their honeymoon and moving into their new flat together.
It's odd, that, isn't it? That's not the episode we're going to cover. But can you imagine? You go on your honeymoon, and when you get back off from the airport is when you move into your flat. Like they've got the keys and they're moving in that day. Like I don't know. I'd have put a day or two's window in there.
Quite apart from the fact that I would never marry someone that I hadn't lived with for a couple of years before.
Well,
you really need to check that stuff out. But that's a different time. We're going to get into all
Alan, that is the interesting time capsule nature of this sitcom, isn't it? You said it's 63 to 67, but am I right in thinking quite a few of the episodes are missing?
Most of the episodes are missing. Well, actually, basically, there are 5 series. Series 1 and 3 are extant. The others are not.
Okay. All right. So, we're going to cover Series 1, Episode 10, which is called The Old Place.
So that is the last of the first series.
So I've watched a few from Series 1 and a couple from Series 3. Have you watched basically everything that's available?
I'll tell you what I've done. I've watched all the ones that are available, which they got put out on a DVD. So that's Series 1 and Series 3. However, I also managed to find the radio adaptation of the show. So... in 1965 and then 67, there was 2 series of the radio show. Now, this is a straight adaptation of the TV scripts. It wasn't new material. However, it's also shortened. There's fewer episodes, and so some episodes have kind of like, they've taken 2 storylines and squished them into one.
Okay.
Which works.
Now, so what you're making me think of, because I've got a picture of Prunella scales up on my desktop here. And we did
that's not because of the show. You always had that.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. When it's the hairdo, I can't get past it. When we talked about After Henry with Prunella Scales, did that come from a radio program, or was it adapted into a radio program?
Yes.
Am I misremembering?
No, it came from a radio show originally. Yes,
and that's a fairly common thing, a reasonably common thing for sitcoms, perhaps later than 1963. But in this case, it was the other way around. It was a radio adaptation of the TV program.
Yes, which was certainly not unusual. I mean, they all did it. Dad's Army did it, and basically everything. Steptoe and Son. And the fact that this TV show doesn't exist, they didn't really think in terms of, we'll put this out on TV and then we'll repeat it at some point. They put it out and then they went, right, that's done. And so doing a radio version of it, that was your way of getting it out there again and getting more out of the material that you've already paid for.
And in this case, it's a nice way of us hearing some of the scripts that have been lost.
Exactly. So they're not straight adaptation. They're not just the same scripts exactly, because obviously you have to make a bit of amendments for the medium, but also, like I say, they've shortened it. There are fewer episodes altogether. However, it does give a general idea of kind of what the storylines were and the general vibe of it.
Yeah.
So I listened to all of them. I can give you a bit of a rough idea of what happened to the Starlings after this.
Shall we, before we dig into our specific episode, shall we do a sort of overview? So, as we said, episode 1, we see them moving into their new home. And over the course of, in series 3, they have a child. And so it's basically the trouble and strife of a newly married couple in 1963, as they're struggling a little bit with money, a little bit with their relationship and where they sit in the world. So what else happens in the overall arc that I don't know about?
George loses his job because he gets drunk at an office do and offends his boss.
Okay.
And
classic. The vicar's coming round for dinner.
Yeah. And then he has to kind of get a new job, and there's that kind of trials and tribulations. They, at one point, George is going to move to Africa.
Okay.
And it's a whole thing where he's going to go to Africa he'll be there for a while, then she can come and join him, and they're going to move, they're going to leave their parents behind, and blah, 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 but it's a good promotion opportunity.
That's your classic 1960s story, isn't it?
And it never gets any more specific than Africa, That is that is.
Well, actually, do you know what? I had a mocking tone there. Oh, it's your classic 1960s. We all had that dilemma of moving to Africa. So, okay, I think that is ridiculous. However, probably 50 years earlier, that would have been a fairly common thing. People going out to work in the colonies.
Well, the idea is that his company has an office out there somewhere, but where, I don't know. But yeah, there was still a bit of colonialism going on in the 60s. It was,
okay. So I take back my my mocking tone.
But yeah, I mean, it's through his work, so he's got his job there. So that kind of happens, and then it doesn't happen, and then it's going to happen, it doesn't happen, you know. Actually, to say this is an episodic sitcom, there is quite a lot of overarching narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the third series is pretty much, they have a baby, and they're like, oh my God, having a baby. So it's like, that's a whole big thing.
I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about the whole birth episode. That was such a weird episode, but we can come back to that.
And it's very much supposed to be the story of a kind of a young married couple and their trials and tribulations. And it's supposed to be the comedy of familiarity. People are supposed to watch this and go, oh, yes, that's just like us.
Yes.
Middle class people.
Yeah. I think that's what's quite interesting on, because, obviously the people watching it would have been relatable to them. Otherwise it wouldn't have had 5 series. And so it is a nice little time capsule of young married life.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is one of the things I want to get into, because it feels so of its time. It feels so 60s.
Yeah, totally.
But also like a very specific section of 60s. It's very, very middle class.
Very middle class, yes. Do we ever find out where it's set? I think it's set in North London, for reasons I will explain later, because I did some research on the local shops that we saw in the in the exterior shots. But I think they're sort of North London based, middle class. He works in an office. There's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses type stuff. Yeah, I
mean, it's literally in the first series, and we'll talk about this later in our episode. They have neighbours who are kind of them, but a few years ahead, and so they're the ones they're looking up to as like, oh, is that what we're going to be like when we've been married a while? Because the first series is all about like, oh, we've only just got married and we're already arguing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Oh my God. and of course, it's 1963, so that's it. You're trapped there forever. Like, there's no such thing as divorce.
Okay, right. Let's just lay this out right up front, because this show really pushed my buttons. Because how you get very chippy about your class structural things and rich people shitting on the poor. Well, I get it, but for me, it's the old heteronormative. Being a monogamous relationship forever, and doesn't matter how unhappy you are, just stay there. That winds me up.
That's what we're talking about. Series 1 here, but yes, there are so many red flags.
And this is all about, the whole point of this is people are watching this and going, oh yes, we were like that when we first met, and now
I'm stuck with someone that does my head in as well.
Yes, we've learned how to tolerate each other now for the children.
Yeah.
So it really wound me up. But I think it was true to the time. I don't think this is an unrealistic representation. So let's get into it. I tell you what, let's just get into our episode and sort of branch off.
Okay, so Series 1, Episode 10, last one in Series 1. It's called The Old Place. And to spoiler, what's going to happen is they're going to get kicked out of their house, and then eventually it all works out in the end. That's basically the plot of this episode.
Yeah.
It's not a house, it's a flat.
And this flat, the flat that we literally see them move into in episode 1. Mm-hmm. So let's start at the beginning.
Let's start with the titles, because I think the titles are worth talking about. Firstly, there's no titles as such. The titles just come up over the action, and we see Prunella Scales, Kate she's called. We see Kate, she's about to go into her flat, and then she thinks better of it and goes and knocks on the next door neighbour's flat and goes to talk to her friend. But we'll get to that in a minute. The point is, we are setting up the episode, we are seeing what's going to happen. It's not a visual title sequence.
Which is the same for every episode. There are no official titles, but it's just a sort of superimposed title card and then our principal actors.
Was that just literally like an acetate with some words on it that they held in front of the camera? Like, is that how that was done?
Well, not literally held in front of the camera, but it was... So you have one camera shooting that, and then you superimpose it onto the other thing that you're shooting.
From the cameras.
Yeah. But it's all done live, it's done in the moment.
Yeah.
And often someone with like turning a little lever and making the thing scroll upwards. That's why titles scroll upwards on films. Because you had it on a big conveyor belt, basically.
Yeah, I understand.
So yeah, but I do like that. It does feel very old fashioned, doesn't it? But it gives it a nice kind of...
just ever so slightly wobbly as well. It's really nice. What about the music, Alan? I really liked the music. I thought it was great.
It's sort of a Wedding Bells kind of vibe, isn't it?
It's Here Comes the Bride, but that's the. I'm not a musician, but they use the theme of Here Comes the Bride, and they've done a variation on it. But it's great. I think it's really good. It's got that sort of wedding-y vibe,
which for episode 1 is perfect. And I guess the rest of the series is fine as well.
yeah. After they've got 2 kids, Here Comes the Bride with jazz hands is sort of stretching it a little bit, isn't it?
So yeah, this episode starts with Kate. She's returning home from wherever she's been. Who knows where that is, because she has no job and no children and therefore no purpose in life.
I wondered about this. Like, what does she do all day? There's. I think we need to address this, right? Because there's several times where she really does my head in, right? She really irritates me. And there's several times where I think, just leave the guy alone. He's out there working. He's doing his best. God, you're sat there on your arse all day. And so I have definitely got that in me. But then I also think, this is the patriarchy in action. This poor woman, she's been stifled. She's got nothing to do. Yeah, she's bored. And I feel that sympathy too. But she does piss me off.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting that this show is written by a man, and we'll come back to that later. But the female character here, played by Prunella Scales, called Kate. Yeah, it's a weak character. We'll go into it in a bit more detail, but yeah, she's a young woman who has given up her job because she's got married, but not had a baby yet, and therefore literally has no purpose in her life.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can speak culturally about why that is just, obviously that's an outdated thing now, but she has nothing. She has no friends. She has no hobbies, no interests.
All she has is the time to become neurotic and worry about things. Yes. And the manifestation of that is the comedy. She does annoy me. However,
yes.
I think I can sympathize for the root causes of that.
So in this particular case, before returning home, she just decides to pop into Nora next door, her neighbour and friend.
Nora, by the way, the next door neighbour's Nora, and she's, I don't know, mid-20s. Like, it seems odd to have a Nora who's mid-20s, but that's right. Like, she's Nora. My granny's age now. That's about right. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of age, right? Before we keep branching off before getting into any plot here, but Prunella Scales and Richard Briers here playing our young couple were both about 30, 31 when the show started.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
And yes, but they're definitely supposed to be younger than that. The characters are supposed to be like, they're just married, so probably 19, but like early 20s, I think they're supposed to be. But because this is 1963, you get married when you're 20. That's just the way it goes. Yeah,
exactly. I'm surprised they're that old. I haven't done the maths on it. I suppose it makes sense when I think about it. But yeah, I would have guessed they were mid-20s. As actors.
Yeah, certainly they're sort of playing that. So she goes and knocks on next door's house. So Nora and Peter, they meet them in the first episode. They are, I don't know, I guess they're supposed to be 5 years older. They've been married a while. They've been through it all.
They offer reasonably wise counsel. They offer, they're sort of good sounding boards, I think.
Yes, but also they have their own problems, and we have a bit of fun with that. And also, so Kate and George look at them as like, oh, at least we're not like that. Oh, do you think we'll be like that in a few years? Oh, no, we'll never be like that, darling. So there's a lot of that goes on. But they're great characters, and in the first series, they are the other regular characters.
Yeah.
Nora here, she's waiting to hear from Peter because Peter has had a meeting today at work about getting a rise. And this is a big deal. This is 1960s middle-class suburbia, and it's all about moving up the hierarchy in the industry. Mm-hmm. And specifically in relation to George, our main character, he can't do that. He's crap at all that stuff.
Yes, he's not assertive. He's a pushover.
Yes, and that's basically what this whole first bit is setting up. He is not the pushy type. And just to make it really obvious, we show that Peter is, and he's got his rise. George hasn't. And we're also setting up that they've got some money issues. Nothing too bad, but it's just like, well, they just haven't got
This is the first example of where Kate really annoys me. Because, so we're setting up the fact that it's George, Richard Breyer's character called her. We're setting up that George is a bit of a pushover. And so she's talking to Nora, and Nora's like, oh, maybe Peter's going to get this pay rise. And she says, well, this is not going to be any problem for us because George is fucking useless, basically. And she said, well, just look at him. Just completely throwing him under the bus to a friend, you know.
I think I think what they do well here is, as much as they argue and she'll say things like that, there is a real sense of love between them, and I think we do get a genuine sense of affection between them. I think you feel like genuinely the actors like each other. You know, it's
chemistry.
There's a bit of chemistry between them, and you know what? They're both quite weak characters, and that's quite something to build a show around two weak characters. That's
a good observation. Yeah. So, incidentally, Peter's prospective wage rise is £2 a week. That's what he's hoping to get. Can you ever guess what the average weekly wage was in 1963?
Well, I know that they're paying like £8 a week in rent. So I would say
eight guineas.
Yes, well, so I would say that their rent, the average wage would be £20.
Well, the average weekly wage in 1963 was £16 7 shillings. So that's £16.35 in new money.
Okay, yeah,
so
that makes sense.
So their rent is quite high. It's like half of their income.
Yeah.
And of course, you've only got one income because women's brains aren't equipped for work. Obviously they are, but not once they've become married. They lose that
obviously
capacity.
Once they've become married, their ability to type immediately ceases.
Yeah.
But
you're making me think of the pub landlord there. Did you notice that when she walks into Nora's apartment, Nora closes the door behind her and it just swings back open again because the set's so cheap and lightweight?
I did notice that. And then, obviously, later on in the scene, Peter walks in and they just sort of stand up and go, "Oh, Peter!" So I don't know if there was supposed to be a dramatic door opening point there where he bursts in. But yeah,
I tell you what, there's a good little gag here which I didn't think got any reaction. Basically, Kate says, "Well, all we own is our bed," and Nora says, "Well, that's nice to fall back on, dear." That's a good joke. That's a solid 1963 innuendo joke.
That's a great.
And it got titters. It got titters from the studio audience. I thought that was worth more.
I think that's because the character says it knowing it's a joke, and so Kate's response is like, "Oh, yeah, that's a good joke."
I couldn't help thinking all we own is the bed.
Well, that's nice to fall back on, dear.
So I think if you do that as an unknowing kind of thing, it might hit harder. No. I think it might be.
I thought that was a solid 1963 joke.
I love it. I like it. It was a great joke. So yeah, we kind of set up our principal things here, and if you've never watched this show before, I think this is a nice setup. I think this is a kind of a well-written, structured bit. We immediately understand kind of what our characters are and what their problems are. And then Peter comes in, and he's got his rise, and he's celebrating.
He's got a bottle of champagne, proper champagne, apparently.
And obviously, Peter and Nora are very happy. Kate leaves them to it, but Kate is very unhappy, and I'm thinking Kate might be physically incapable of happiness.
So what happens is Peter comes home. Yes, I got the pay rise. Nora's like, yes, we got the pay rise, and Buzzkill Kate is just like, I've got nothing. Just be happy. Just pretend to be happy for your friend.
Just for politeness, yeah.
Just visibly jealous.
Yeah, and this is something that runs right through the show. It is kind of a fundamental piece of her character. Anything, and even when something really good happens, she will turn it into a negative. She will find a way to make it bad. If George got a rise, she would immediately, within 30 seconds, she'd be like, "Oh, that means he's going to get a secretary in that bigger office. He's going to sleep with the secretary or whatever." She will immediately find the negative in any situation. Oh, if he has a rise, that means he'll want to move to a bigger house. Oh, do I want a bigger house? I haven't got a baby yet. What's that going to happen?
Do you know what? You've just made me realise something that I hinted at earlier, which was this idea of, yes, she gets on my nerves, but I can kind of sympathise. I think this might be a problem with the way the character's written. In that she's almost so annoying that it's pathological, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't really laugh at this because there's something clearly wrong with this woman.
Yes.
I'm struggling to articulate this a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so neurotic that it's not funny. It's it's too sympathetic.
And if we could really dig down into that and make a show about that'd be great. But it's not. It doesn't work.
No, it's not that show.
It's not finding that depth to it, is it?
No.
To really hammer that home, the next scene, basically, George comes home. I'll whiz through what happens. He comes home, he's extremely happy, he's had a bit of luck. Peter comes in, they're happy, they're having a great time. And then within 2 to 3 minutes, he's down. He's like, oh my God, my wife's
depressed.
Unhappy, I'm going to go.
He's not earning enough.
Because
The
I am
flat's
a failure.
terrible. I'm a failure. Yeah, exactly. She just absolutely deflates him completely.
Within 3
And
minutes of him coming
that is
home,
not
we're
the
having a
only
great
time
day.
that happens in this series.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, and that's when I'm going to call it your heteronormative alarm is going off, is it?
Yeah.
You're just screaming, "Get out of there, George! Get out of there!"
Just run away.
I tell you what, shall we have a quick? Let's have a little jump off and talk about Richard Briers.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've talked about Richard Briers before, haven't we?
Yeah, well, quite recently, actually, because we did the other one.
Of course.
With Richard Briers and Michael Gambon. Not Richard Briers' most famous show. We've never tackled The Good Life.
Well, I guess
Heaven
neither
Increases
is this.
Circle,
This is Richard Briers' first show, though, right? This was his first sitcom starring role, certainly.
Not exactly. So his first... Well, yeah, he was in Brothers-in-Law, which was just before this.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of one of the main characters in that. That was his kind of big breakthrough role. So Brothers-in-Law was a sitcom based on a novel, I believe, about lawyers, about barristers, and he was like the young barrister in the office. Mm-hmm. And it was based on a novel, but written by Frank Muir and Dennis Norden, or adapted for TV by those guys. So
I do remember you telling me that's because in my head last time you said that I went Frank Muir, which I just did again. It should have stayed in my head, really.
But yeah, the important thing about Brothers-in-Law is that one of the other actors was Richard Waring, and he was also a writer.
He's the writer. He's the writer of Marriage Lines, right?
He wrote Marriage Lines. So Richard Waring, he went on to write several things, but this was, he was an actor primarily. I think he wrote some episodes of Brother-in-Law, and then he kind of became a writer, and the acting kind of went by the wayside. His brother was also an actor, so they were doing all that, and they were pretty standard kind of jobbing actor, writing little sketches and blah blah blah, and that developed into I'm going to write a sitcom. And he became a script editor for the BBC, so he actually was on the salary, just to be able to give things a little bit of a polish. That was right before this, and obviously once you're in, you kind of go, I've got an idea. What about this? A young couple, they've just got married, and the BBC went, right, let's do it. So he was writing his own shows, but also script editing for decades, basically. That was his kind of bread and butter.
So that was his bread and butter, yeah. No, he's doing a job, the lad. He's doing a job.
Hey, look, I tell you what, Richard Waring, when you look at his work, I'll go through some of his sitcoms, right? So, Marriage Lines, Not in Front of the Children, which I'll talk about a bit more later. A show called Bachelor Father, My Wife Next Door with John Alderton and Hannah Goldman.
I remember that one. Yeah, we've talked about that before.
And Mother Makes Three.
We've got. I see a family theme here.
Yeah, Miss Jones and Son, which is Paula Wilcox, who was unmarried with a baby.
Single mother, a scandal.
Rings on Their Fingers, we've talked about this. Here's an interesting one. He did a show called My Honourable Missus.
My Honourable Missus, is that a politician related?
Well, it's interesting based on something we talked about recently, because it's a show with Derek Nimmo, and it's about a female MP. This was 1975.
I don't remember. Did we talk about this when we did the Penelope Keith one?
No, I don't think we did.
Don't think so.
I don't remember this at all. But as the title suggests, it's more about the husband dealing with the fact that his wife is an MP, is Derek Nimmo as the star, as opposed to the other way around. But yeah, interesting, that one, considering we just did No Job for a Lady. But yeah, basically, you look at Richard Waring's output, it's all very down the middle, domestic, middle-class sitcoms. Wendy Craig is in most of them. You got John Alderton in them, it's like that kind of...
I mean, dare I say, Richard Briers.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, a fascinating...
Well, he's a BBC man, isn't he? There's no great experimentation there. He's delivering the goods.
I tell you what, as well, I was reading obituaries of Richard Waring. Now, when people are dead, it's really useful for me because the obituaries are a great way to get a good, like, little potted biography of people. But it's much easier to look at the older stuff. But Richard Waring was particularly interesting because there was a little bit of euphemism around this, but basically he just ate and drank himself into a stupor every day and became extremely fat. And sat and wrote stuff. It was a big fat bloke who loved to get drunk. And he seemed happy with that.
Did the obituary a gourmand? That's what the obituary call it. A real gourmand.
A huge personality.
Yeah. But he's got a good track record there. Like you say, he was on the BBC payroll for decades, just churning them out.
Yeah, and it's not stuff that's really stood the test of time, but I think that's because, like Marriage Lines here, they're very in the moment.
They're just generic.
In their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't want to be dismissive about that because I think it's
no.
Fair enough,
I hope I'm not. I hope that's not what I'm saying. You know, we sort of, as sitcom historians, we sort of look at those things that stand out, and you look at the things that change. You know, The Office, the things that change the face of sitcom. Mm-hmm. But in the background, 80% of it is just keeping people happy, giving them what they want, and that there is a need for that. There is a need for that.
And this is good, solid, kind of character-driven stuff. It's not particularly plot-heavy. It's not like, I don't know, just to use an obvious example, On the Buses, which is much more driven by like, oh no, we've got to do the decorating and we've only, we haven't, and I've nicked this wallpaper from the depot, you know, all that sort of stuff. You know, it's like, this is much more character-driven stuff. But let's just jump back to Richard Briers there. So that just
we started talking about Richard Briers and we ended up talking about Richard Waring instead.
But that's just because obviously they met during their kind of first sitcom, or Richard Briers' first sitcom, Brothers-in-Law. Do you know what? Right, I actually thought we think of Richard Briers as a kind of sitcom royalty here, but I thought, all right, I'm actually going to top this up. How many sitcoms has Richard Briers done
as a regular main cast?
Yes. And to be straightforward with you, main cast basically means lead. There's nothing here where he was like, he played the granddad who popped in for an episode every now and then. He was the lead in it, basically. And there's a bit of grey area here about what exactly you would call a sitcom, and there's a couple of things that I'm not even sure what they are. So, but basically, I've got a number here. What do you reckon?
7?
10.
10, wow.
10.
Wow.
I'll quickly rip through them just to give you a kind of a throw at it. Brothers-in-Law. The Marriage Lines, or Marriage Lines, as it might be. The Good Life.
Good Life.
One-Upmanship.
Yeah.
The Other One. Goodbye, Mr. Kent. Ever-Decreasing Circles. All in Good Faith, where he's a vicar.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If You See God, Tell Him, which is a bit of a mini-series, really, if anything, but I want to talk about that in a second. And then Down to Earth, which we mentioned last time we talked about him because it was his last sitcom role. So that's over, like, early 60s to mid-90s. But, you know, 2 of those, maybe 3 of those are sort of significantly remembered today?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But I think that goes back to what I was saying about all the generic stuff that perhaps in 2025 we don't remember all that well, but will have been very popular in its time. And, you know, if you lived through that 30 years, Richard Briers would have been almost ever present, you know. He would have been in those generic watch-along type of things that Richard Waring was writing. Richard Briers would have been a key part of that.
Yeah, I mean, like Brothers-in-Law and The Marriage Lines are his early ones, and then there's a bit of a gap where he kind of had to age into that middle-age kind of vibe, and then The Good Life was the one that just, that's the one really he'll be remembered for. But after that, there's a flurry of, like, right, we've got Richard Briers as a star now, let's put him in stuff.
It makes me think of those, like, if you watch any ITV drama, you know, like Broadchurch or something with Vicky McClure in it, you know, all of those things that ITV turn out. And they're all right. They're pretty good. And there's like the same supporting cast. You're like, I saw him in that other thing. You know, and it's people who do a job and they're perfectly good at it and they might not be big stars, but they are there. You know their faces. Yeah. Like Richard Briers evolved from one of those into a national treasure.
Yeah, fair enough. You know, can't argue with it, can you? No. Can I have a bit of a chat with you about If You See God, Tell Him?
Yeah, go on. Because that rings a bell. I think we must have spoken about that and the other one, but go on.
We have, yes, because we did mention it in the other one, but also because it's written by Renwick and Marshall, David Renwick and Andrew Marshall. who did things like Hot Metal and lots of sketch shows back in the 80s. Now, David Renwick, of course, went on to make One Foot in the Grave, Jonathan Creek, things like that. Andrew Marshall did 2.4 Children was his biggest hit. But then If You See God Tell Him was something they'd written a few years earlier, but then didn't get made until 1993, where they'd basically they'd both
gone
gone
their
off
separate
to do
ways
their
by
own
then.
things at that point.
Yeah.
But this got made. And I just happened to watch it quite recently, like all the way through. And so I just thought, well, I'm never going to talk about it otherwise. I'll use this as an opportunity to tell you about it.
Okay, let's do it.
So it's a funny little thing. It's 4 episodes, but they're about 45 minutes long. It's more of a mini-series. It's not really like an overarching narrative kind. It is quite episodic. But basically the concept is Richard Briers is an older gentleman. He's supposed to be about 65. And he has an accident where he gets smashed in the head, and it means he can no longer form memories. And he has this very short-term memory. And so he really enjoys watching adverts because he can focus on something for 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's really becomes this whole kind of, and bear in mind, Marshall and Renwick were sketch writers.
That is a sketch. That's a sketch. I'm intrigued to how that stretches over 3 hours.
Oh, well, yeah. But it's very much becomes, there's a lot of advert parodies in it. They literally show and film that like, they make the adverts as they were. And it's really great. It's these great little advert parodies of adverts at the time. And they work really well. They're nicely put together and all this. But then the overall narrative is he's not really functional to look after himself, and he's very irresponsible because he doesn't seem to realise the consequences of his actions and things like that. But he's always got this very happy-go-lucky kind of vibe about it, even when things are going terribly wrong. And so he ends up having to be looked after by his nephew's wife.
Anyone famous?
Adrian Edmondson and Imelda Staunton.
Wow, okay. All right, so when is this? What year is 93?
93.
Okay, so they're after their first flush of young ones. That's okay.
Yeah, Adrian Edmondson, who I can't sit here and say Adrian Edmondson's a great actor. He's good at certain things in comedy. Like this, he's playing quite a straight, I'm just a guy. I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's Victor Meldrew. It's a younger Victor Meldrew. Because he's constantly frustrated and he's irritated by the world around him.
How do you feel about the delay, sir?
Well, how the hell do you think I feel? As if it wasn't bad enough spending my holiday in the airport lounges of the world, I get here and have to submit to an intimate body search by customs officials.
Excuse me, sir.
I tell you this, if I'd had any ecstasy on my bottom, I'd have taken it by now. Don't worry, I shall get straight on to my MP about this thing.
Obviously, it's the same writers, but, that is fascinating because those ideas are obviously there. And it's interesting to see. I don't think Adrian Edmondson's a particularly great actor, but it's fine. And then Imelda Staunton, who is a great actor. But it's just a weird show. It never quite figures out what it is or what it's doing. I don't think it really understands the purpose. It's just a sort of vehicle for some of these advert parodies and then there's all the classic kind of Renwick kind of weird stuff where people were being horrifically kind of killed and stuff like that. It's quite a dark vein.
He does like a bit of violence. Any animals been harmed in the production?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
So that was Richard Briers' later roles, and it's funny. Even back then, he was only 60 in that, but he's playing older. And then he died in 2013. So he would have been 79 at the time. He had really bad emphysema, apparently. He was a heavy smoker most of his life, so that was kind of the thing, yeah. I'll tell you what we didn't mention last time, and someone popped up in the comments of the other one on YouTube, where we put it up on there, and said, "Oh, don't forget, he did a lot of voice work in the 70s as well." And I thought, yeah, Rhubarb and Custard, he did that, didn't he? But actually, you look into it, like he did a lot of voice work in the 70s. A lot of children's cartoons. He was the narrator for Noddy.
Good money, that, innit? Good money.
Yeah. That's your bread and butter right there. Yeah. And, Watership Down was a big show as well. So, I think fair enough. I think you should note that. He was a big voice actor back at a time when that wasn't really a thing in quite the same way it is now. Oh, here's another little tidbit about Richard Briers. I told you last time we spoke about him, mostly to aggravate you, that the reason he'd clicked with Kenneth Branagh, because that was a bit of a late career resurgence, all his work with Branagh. The reason that happened was through John Sessions. He was working with John Sessions and Kenneth Branagh came to see him. Now, I know you just have a particular distaste for John Sessions, so I was just...
Yeah.
However, I just read, researching this, an interview with Richard Briers where he said he met Kenneth Branagh because his daughter, Lucy Briers, who is now a well-established actor in her own right, she was a big fan of Kenneth Branagh. She was a drama student, and Kenneth Branagh was kind of the big thing in the 80s.
Yes.
And so she took her dad to see a Kenneth Branagh play. And then basically went, look, you're off the good life, right? You can get us backstage. You're a celebrity.
yes.
And so he used his kind of his stardom to be able to kind of just get in and
introduce his daughter.
Yeah. Now, Lucy Briers,
like
I don't think has ever worked with Kenneth Branagh, but Richard Briers did. So
I respect that. That's good. Shall we bring it back to the episode? I would like to talk about their flat. So you outlined the scene that's going to take place. But basically what happens is Kate goes back to their flat and she's cheesed off because they haven't got anything. It's all rubbish. And so we go round the flat looking at how crap it is. And I'm basically like, well, it looks all right, really. What did you think of the set? And it's a bit small and pokey, but they've got a lovely wooden sideboard there. It's got an ornament on it. It's got ornaments.
A camel on it. Got a camel, yeah.
Camel and cruet.
I was a little bit frustrated, actually, in the way this episode was filmed, purely on the basis that we're talking about the flat and what they think of the flat and the wallpaper. Like, just pull back, give us a wide shot of the flat, which we never quite get. I was a bit frustrated by that.
Yeah. There's a nice, looks like quite a modern fitted kitchen we can see in the background. But then we get a little bit of prop work where she goes to adjust the lamp. I don't know what she's doing to the lamp, but it breaks in half and knocks the vase off, which is pretty shoddy physical work.
Well, they come back to that another 2 times in the show. So. Yeah. The flat itself is, a main living area with an adjunct kitchen, and the kitchen is separated by this sort of sliding divider, which is kind of ugly in itself in a house. It's just this big blank doors that kind of cut off the 2 rooms, but can obviously be opened up to allow a bit of space. But it's particularly bothersome in a TV show because it's just this great big block of dead space at the back of the room. And so they obviously open them a bit to make the kitchen come through, but then don't open them all the way because I guess they want, particularly in this episode, it to look a bit small and like crap.
Yeah.
And so it's just a bit of a weird, it's half open in this episode. Or is that because they're trying to hide the fact that the kitchen isn't fully decorated? They've only set dressed the bit that you can see. And then they have the bedroom with a door coming off the bedroom, which I assume is a bathroom. And that's it, basically. That's your lot.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier. So George comes home and he's all enthusiastic. He's full of vim and vigour.
George, what's happened?
It was in my horoscope this morning. Financial surprise.
Not promotion?
Promotion? Give me a chance, darling. I haven't been there for 100 years yet. No, I got 3 lemons on the fruit machine. 34 and 6. Look at it, all mine.
He says his horoscope told him he was going to come into some money, and it's true because he won on the fruity. He won on the fruit machine. So that's his idea of a good day, And she, like you said, she absolutely knocks the enthusiasm out of him in seconds.
34 and 6 he's won. That's a lot of money.
That's all right, isn't it? I had a diversion on horoscopes because I thought horoscopes, was that a thing in the 60s then? Obviously horoscopes go back centuries, but you know what I mean. Was that a cultural thing? So I think of horoscopes like they were massive in the 90s. Like there was a guy called, I don't know if he's still around, Jonathan Caner. And I remember reading this, he was the highest paid, I'm going to use air quotes, journalist in Britain. So everyone writing in British newspapers, he was the highest paid, Jonathan Caner. He was the Daily Mail's horoscope guy.
Wow.
So they were massive in the 90s. Do you remember Mystic Meg?
Oh, yes, of course, the National Lottery.
So Mystic Meg was the horoscope person, astrologer. That's the word I'm like. Not horoscope person. She was the horoscope person in. I think it was in the Sun, but her sort of big break into cultural relevance was she was on the National Lottery, and she did this bizarre 2-minute prediction before the balls, which is massively high stakes. What are you going to stand there and predict this random draw seconds before it actually happens? You're proved wrong. And you got to admire balls.
Obviously you never predict the numbers because that's crazy talk.
You make it sufficiently vague. Yes, quite. Which is the absolute stock in trade of the horoscope.
But she would always say things like, I think you're in particular luck if you're wearing pink right now.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like, what? But yeah, if you've got 10 million people playing the lottery. It's not hard to get a hit, is it? If you're going to be that vague.
Yeah, exactly. So I looked into it. Apparently in the 1930s, there was an astrologer called R.H. Naylor, and he worked in the Sunday Express. And so it's been popular amongst simpletons since then.
It's a bizarre thing. I don't get it. But when you read it in the paper, and it's like every single day, there's like a new horoscope. So someone's got to churn that out, 12 of that stuff every day. And I in a way, you got to respect that. I haven't got that capacity for bullshit to make that feel sufficiently different every time.
Alan, I have in my hand a piece of paper. And this is from the Daily Express, the horoscopes, and it's from a random day in 1963. So it's not going to be accurate for the day that this was transmitted. So don't hold me to it. But what star sign are you?
Me, I'm a Gemini.
Oh yeah, that's why she left you. Yeah. Gemini. Okay, I'm going to read this out. Can I do my Mystic Meg impression?
Okay.
Gemini. Follow through on your hunch. Intuitive intellect serves as a reliable guide. There you go.
Wow. You tell me that was from today's paper. That would be exactly the same. We're talking here about how much life has changed since the marriage lines in 1963, but horoscopes haven't.
Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly the same.
I guess you only really have to write... It's like Teletubbies, you only need 1 year's worth. And then you can start repeating it. No one's ever going to know.
No one's ever going to know, exactly. I think if Jonathan Kaner was here, then he would probably bridle at that and say he has to sit and do those star charts every day, and there's a lot of work goes into it.
Yeah, I'm sure they do pretend to do that every day, but nonetheless. All right, so let's get back to the episode. George has won 34 and 6 on a fruity.
I've got fruit machines here. I've got fruit machine gear to go through.
Okay. When were fruit machines a thing?
This just genuinely interested me. Like, when did fruit machines? So in 1963, where would you go for a fruit machine? Presumably the pub. I think we know that George has been at the pub with his mate at lunchtime or after work. So fruit machines first appeared in this country in the 1920s, but there was sort of boom after the war. And they were in pubs, essentially. Okay, the 1960 Gambling Act was before that, it was a bit of a grey area. There was no law, but they sort of restricted them. 1960, they said they could only appear in sort of adult spaces like pubs. So basically, George has been the boozer. That's what this is. The fact that he's been on the fruit machines is a signal to the audience. George has had a few pints. And in 1968, so after this, there was another gaming act that allowed casinos for the first time in this country. And also, perhaps more culturally relevant to sitcoms, bingo halls. So before 1968, bingo wasn't really legal either. So there was a big boom in bingo in the 60s and 70s, late 60s and 70s. And then the last sort of bit of politics here. In 2005, the Blair government brought in their Gambling Act. And that was basically a complete free-for-all. Do whatever you want. Open casinos, ruin snooker, sponsor football teams, whatever the hell you like. But anyway, George has won 34 shillings on the fruities.
Yeah, and he's very happy. He acknowledges that he had to put 7 bob in to get it. So I think that's a good sign that he's not a blind gambler.
Yeah.
I wanted to notice. I want to note here, particularly here, George comes in. He's very excited, but generally Richard Breyer's performance overall, he's very fast, very quick talking.
Yes, he is. Yes.
This is typical of Richard Breyer's early performances, and to his own confession as well. And I don't think it was like, oh, this character should speak quickly. That was just the way he was. He always just rattle, rat-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And so he suited characters that would work for that. I think that's something we see him settle down a bit later on. But even in The Good Life, he gets very excitable and speaks very quickly. And I think he saw it as a bit of a flaw in his early career, or at least a limitation.
Interesting.
It is fast. I guess I'm just used to it. But I watched. I made my American girlfriend watch this episode just to sort of get an outsider's perspective, also to get a woman's perspective. And she said, "Does he know that full stops exist?" so that was her note. Was like, "Oh my god, he's just talking.
Take a breath. Take a breath."
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you said it, I agree, but I hadn't thought it. Like, it wasn't something I was conscious of.
Oh, and a little club Ronnie Forrest took me to. He was celebrating. The building society came up with his mortgage.
Lucky Ronnie.
Oh, darling, they deserve it, honestly. With that baby and that awful little hole in Victoria, we went to dinner there. You said you didn't know how they stuck it. We got back here and you said how lucky we were to have our little nest. Oh, there's nothing like it, darling, after a hard day on the fruit machine.
And I think it works just because, well, it suits the character, but also because it doesn't lose rhythm for it. It's still kind of, it has all the meaning and it has the timing of a comedy, show, but it's just very fast.
So yeah, like you said earlier, this is George comes home and Kate tells him that Peter, the neighbour, might be getting this promotion, might be getting moved to Edinburgh. Oh, everyone's really happy. And, he's genuinely pleased for his friend, and she is such a buzzkill. Basically, she uses the opportunity to say everything shit about her life. And she, like you said, she talks him into it. Within 30 seconds, he's reflecting that he's a failure, and that, he's not supporting his wife well enough, and that he's never going to amount to anything, and she just completely kicked all the air out of him.
Yeah. He's very emotionally affected by her, but there are times when he's a knob as well, there are...
Yeah, that's true.
There are times when he goes off down the pub and, doesn't tell her, and then she's made a nice dinner and comes home, half cut and all this sort of stuff.
Or he goes and gets drunk and she goes and gives birth.
Yeah,
that's all that episode. We'll come back to
that. But yeah, it's... generally speaking, he seems like a good guy who's doing his best and learns from his mistakes.
Yeah.
And occasionally gets caught up in a bit of hubris or a bit of manly banter where he's like, oh, yeah, we'll just go down the pub and, the wives can look after themselves kind of thing. But it's always in a kind of trying to keep up with his fellow man kind of way.
When we talked about Till Death Us Do Part, you said something that was quite interesting. You said Alf Garnett thinks he's a good husband because he doesn't hit else. And within the context of his world, he's probably right. And I think within the context of 1963, Richard Price is quite a good husband.
Yeah, he cares about his wife.
He does, genuinely.
Yeah, and so he is concerned with her emotional well-being. He can be a bit jealous sometimes and that kind of quite petty and things like that. But they seem fairly equal on that level. So there's always kind of, it comes at the end, they kind of go, oh, haven't we been a bit silly, darling? It's a good job we love each other so much. That's kind of the conclusion of every episode. Which is fine, but they never quite learn from it. They just sort of go back to normal.
The next thing he says, let's spend a bit of money. Let's get some nice things for the house. And she immediately goes, she basically gets genuinely manic. She's almost hysterical. She's going around saying, a standard lamp and some matching table lamps so that we can turn off the overhead light. I've always hated the overhead light. Medium rug, new clock, Venetian glasses, chandelier, big mirror. She is properly, immediately goes from 0 to 60.
Well, it's interesting that when he's placating her earlier, and she's like, oh yeah, maybe I'm just being silly. He says something along the lines of, just a touch of the old manic depressives, eh?
He does say that, yes. I wrote that down somewhere. Yeah, that's an incredible phrase, isn't it? Just a touch of the old manic depressives.
And then she goes on, has this manic episode where she kind of goes off. So, I don't know, I feel like that's probably just a colloquialism rather than
sure. I don't think he's diagnosing it. Incidentally, is this the first... I mean, there's no way you can answer this question. Is this the first televised example of the big light argument? She wants some lamps so she can turn the big light off.
I hate lamps. I want a big light on.
I want to be able to see what I'm doing, Alan.
Give me a proper light.
Why does every meal have to feel like a seance?
And without getting into 90s stand-up comic territory, I think this is a male-woman divide.
I think it generally is. And as I say, I don't think we are coming up with anything original here. But in 1963, okay, let's turn the big light off.
And I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this week, but do come back next time when we will continue our discussion on marriage lines and we'll have a little bit of a closer look at Prunella scales. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch, we are on the social medias at BritComPod. On Facebook, you can find us at British Sitcom History Podcast. Search for that. Thank you so much for listening and we will see you next week.